I ruined my mom's life and reputation. My parents, dad and mom, have been married for 43 years. I have 6 siblings: 42F, 38F, 34F, 20M, 20M, 18M. I have been with my husband since we were 15. I got pregnant at 17 and we moved in with my parents. I gave birth to my now 22-year-old daughter. We got married at 18 shortly after. My dad's father passed shortly after our wedding and left his ranch-style house to my father. My grandparents built a house next door to my parents when they retired. My parents decided to let us live in this house and told us this would be my inheritance. My husband and I had no issues with this. We went on to have a 20M, 14F, 5F, and I'm currently 7 months pregnant with my last child, a boy, due in April. I thought I had a good marriage. We were intimate more than twice a week. We went on date nights. We bought each other gifts. We didn't fight. My entire world was shattered on New Year's Eve when I returned early from a girls' trip I had taken with some friends. I walked into my bedroom to find my mom having sex with my husband. My mother screamed at me to get out of their bedroom, which really shook me up even more. Unfortunately, my oldest daughter was also home in her bedroom across the house getting ready for a party. She ran out and witnessed my all but a bedsheet naked mother run out of our house next door to her house and slam the door. My daughter was devastated and went to my sister's house. I asked her not to say anything until I first talked to my husband. I asked him for the truth. He told me that my mom seduced him when we were 18 and living in their house. They'd been having unprotected sex at least once a month for longer than we were married. I ran the math and was horrified, because the timeline meant my twin brothers and youngest brother could be my husband's. I immediately called my dad and told him to come to my house without my mom. I made my husband confess and my dad was devastated. He and my mom were high school sweethearts too. Needless to say, we could hear my mother screaming from her house when he confronted her. I then told my older sister and she and I decided to have her throw a party for the whole extended family, and we invited my ex's family as well. At the party, I had my 22F daughter take all the kids to our basement and put on a movie, leaving only the adult children and siblings, and I told them exactly what they'd been doing. Most of the family is on my side, except my 3 youngest siblings, 38F's sister, ex's entire family. They all say I'm an AH for dropping this publicly. Word got out and my mom's best friend, who is on leadership at my mom's church, called me to verify. My mom has since been let go as the children's pastor there, and she claims I've essentially ruined her reputation and life. My dad kicked her out and she's now living with my 38F sister, and lastly, my dad insisted on a DNA test for the 3 youngest boys before he'd consider anything to do with their marriage. The twins are my husband's bio children. I've since kicked him out and he's living with his parents. My father and I are discussing me moving into his much larger house and him selling my grandfather's house and him giving me the money to buy a new house somewhere else to get rid of the memories. My husband is appalled and furious that I proved he actually is about to have 7 kids, instead of 5, that I'm going to be taking half his business away from him. My husband started his own HVAC company a few years back, and for the first 5 years, I helped him get it set up, ran the office completely, and took time away from my teaching career to help him get this established. In my state, all marital assets, including businesses, are split 50-50. Since the house was still in my father's name, my husband will get no money from the sale, neither will my mother, since inherited assets are not subject to be split in divorces. My mother is also likely to not get any alimony, as our state is not a no-fault divorce state. I'm now over a month removed, still extremely bitter and angry at my mother, especially at her hypocrisy of calling me a whore and shaming my family, when she's done much worse. I also despise my ex with everything within me now, as he was fucking both my mom and me, in some instances coming to our bed minutes later. He got my mother pregnant less than a week after getting me pregnant, and while I thought it was so cute and fun that I shared a pregnancy experience with my mom, she was carrying my children's half-siblings. He has broken all trust I had in men and being faithful. I have already procured a good lawyer from the firm that helped us in financial matters for both me and my dad is helping pay for it. My twin brothers, one of my sisters, and my entire ex's family have gone no contact with me, and my minor children and my children have essentially lost all of their grandparents but my dad, 2 uncles, and an aunt on my side, and my husband's 3 brothers, due to this mess. I've also developed ulcers and digestive issues because of this, so I'm visiting the doctor soon, and I've been in therapy since the first week of January. I've offered this for my 2 adult children if they need family therapy with all of us, but they're doing individual therapy right now. My 14-year-old knows that we're getting divorced and she's so angry at her dad that I struggle sending her to his house on the weekends. I feel like she's old enough to make a decision on that, but I don't want to damage her relationship with her dad. I've told all my kids it's okay to love their dad, even if he hurt me, but the oldest 2 have cut him off 100%. I won't tell my youngest 2 until they're teens why we got divorced, and everyone else has agreed to not spill anything until they're old enough to understand. As for how I had no idea this affair was ongoing, my husband confirmed to me that they would have sex at my mom's office, at church, in their cars, at a motel, and when we built the business. They started having it routinely in his office, once I went back to teaching. They also had it in our houses too when my father would go away on business trips or I'd be out of town. It was pure happenstance that I came home a day early from a trip, because I was uncomfortable from being nearly 7 months pregnant and just wanted my own bed, for me to find out. Knowing they'd be carrying on this full-blown affair still if I hadn't caught them is what I'm still upset about. The fact that the grandmother and father of my children cared so little about destroying our families is what I can't get past. What's hardest for me is that my own mother would do this to me and would continue to do this for years, and not caring when it all blew up in her face that she would be destroying her entire family. Edit. Also, to add insult to injury, my husband confirmed in one of our mediated conversations the affair started when I apparently made him angry. He didn't tell me and instead vented to my mom when they were alone. She comforted him and they had sex. He loved it and then pursued her after that. He said he would have divorced me, but knew he'd get cut off from her and she was so much better at sex than me, so stuck it out with me. He told me I was a placeholder. Of all the betrayal and low blows, that statement is what keeps me up at night. My mom fucked my husband for 22 years, got pregnant with twins, continued the affair until I caught them in bed together on New Year's Eve while I was nearly 7 months pregnant. I publicly exposed it and my mom lost her job, her marriage, and is homeless. AITA for cutting off my mother when she got a paternity test for my daughter. I've been with my wife for 8 years. We have 2 children, a 5-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. I've known since my wife got pregnant that there was a possibility our daughter wasn't my biological child. I don't care, she's my daughter and my wife has never been unfaithful. However, I don't want to know if she is or she isn't biologically related to me, and I've never wanted to know. Edit to include the full story as people are assuming she cheated. My wife and I were together for around 2 years when we had a fight and broke up. We were broken up for 3 months, during which we both slept with other people, and then we got back together. After approximately 2 months of being back together, my wife found out she was pregnant. We knew there was a possibility of one other man being the biological father, and it was a toss-up between me and him, but it was more likely to be mine. My wife was honest with me that she'd slept with other people when we got back together. And I was equally honest, and the window of conception for our daughter was just large enough we couldn't say for sure if she was conceived when we were together or apart, and while she offered to get our daughter tested, I didn't want to know. My entire family were aware we broke up and got back together. Visibly, she looks like her mother. Same dark hair, same dimples, same bone structure, and I see bits of myself in her, too, mainly in her mannerisms. With the only part that doesn't match up being her eyes, which are brown, while mine are green and my wife's are blue. Meanwhile my son, with his green eyes, blonde hair, and bone structure, looks like I cloned myself, and looks very different to his dark-haired, dark-eyed sister. My mother has noticed, and remarks on it often. This really gets my wife's hackles up, both because of the reality behind that, which my mother is unaware of, and because she and my mother have clashed a few times in the past. They are very different people, and their personalities just don't mix. Then a few months ago my wife's sister and my best friend got into a car accident. They were in the hospital with one of their 3 kids, while the other 2 were home alone. So we asked my mother to watch our kids while we helped them out. Our kids were with her and my dad for about 5 hours. Last week Mum came over and said she had something important to tell me. When she had my daughter unsupervised, she did one of those DNA test kits on my daughter, comparing it to her own DNA, and it confirmed my daughter isn't biologically related to me. And she began to tell me about a lawyer she could get me in touch with to begin divorce proceedings. I told her this changes nothing, she's still my daughter and that's my wife she's talking about. Mum was shocked, and called my wife some names I don't care to repeat. I told her to get out of my house. It's been nearly a week. I've told my wife, blocked my mother on everything, and there's been constant calls and texts. My mother is furious I never told her that I had an inkling, and has since disowned my daughter. But says my son is still her special little guy, so she wants a relationship with my son but not my daughter. In addition to my mother, all 5 of my siblings and dad are angry with me. They want me to get back in touch. And a couple of them have even said I should thank Mum for what she did, as she was looking out for me, and now I know. However, I can't justify my mother going behind my back to get a DNA test on my daughter without consulting me. I feel I'm in the right, but I also feel I could be overreacting, and I would appreciate another perspective, as I'm seriously considering cutting contact with my mother over this. AITA for ruining my brother and his wife's pregnancy news with the news of my recent diagnosis. Bit of backstory: my brother and I are very close, his wife and I not so much. We've had our fair share of tension. Anyway, I fell sick in the middle of May, but held off getting checked out because of COVID and safety reasons. Eventually, when June started, I decided to go check it out. Turns out it was stage 2 breast cancer. I decided to tell my family 2 days ago, since lockdown laws have been lifted. So I invited everyone over, and when I told my brother and his wife, he said okay, that's fine, because he has news to share too. So our family gathered, and my brother decided to go first, and he announced that his wife is 4 months pregnant. Of course everyone was overjoyed. After about an hour they asked about my news, and I knew this was probably the last time in a long while before I had everyone here in person, so I told them. And of course the initial joyous atmosphere was gone. The rest of the evening was a lot of support for me and not a lot of attention on my brother and his wife. My brother didn't seem to mind this, as he was quite distraught with my news, but I saw his wife pretty upset and cornered off. So I decided to approach her, and I apologized for the timing of it all. She told me I could have waited a bit and Skyped everyone with the news, as it's just stage 2, and let my brother and her have this moment with their family. I told her I initially called this meeting for this exact reason, and she said she knows, but I knew my news would damper everyone's mood. So I told her she's being ridiculous, and I wanted to tell my family in person, since they are my family after all. And she burst in tears and demanded to go home, which my brother obliged to, even though he was confused. He promised he would come see me soon since he stays close by to me. Later that evening I get a message from him asking if I told his wife that she isn't part of the family and that I deliberately wanted the attention on me, because that's what she's upset about. Also the next day my parents called me to check up on me, and my mom mentioned that my brother's wife called yesterday evening really upset, telling them what I said, and claiming I'm jealous because she's pregnant and I'm trying to ruin her life. I told my parents what actually happened and what I really said, and it's caused not only tension between his wife and me, but my parents and her too. And now she's also blaming me for my parents not being her biggest fans. My brother is torn but has been trying to talk to her, which results in more tears and a strain in their marriage. All this drama is making me think that I should have just called up everyone rather, or just told my brother that his news had to wait. Even though that would have been selfish of me. I really wanted my family's support that day, but I'm starting to rethink whether it was worth all this drama and potentially causing further problems. AITA. Update number 1. While I didn't expect this to get so much lovely feedback, and to think I was slightly scared to post this, thank you all for the unnerving support, love and huggies. I read every single comment made and I really appreciate it. I will most definitely fight through. Thank you all so much. When brother told me he had news too, he was really super excited and added it as a just by the way I'll announce mine too. He did apologize and admit afterwards if he had known what my news was he would have held off his, because right now what's important is my recovery. He also admitted he wrongfully assumed that my news would automatically be good. His wife wasn't too fond of this either. Brother's wife also had a miscarriage beginning of the year, which is why this pregnancy I suppose was extra special. I'm truly happy for them. I just wish she could understand that this isn't a competition. I don't know why I couldn't tell him over the phone. We are really close and I knew it would have crushed him. I couldn't steal him away at the gathering either because he was the last to arrive, and when he did he just quickly mentioned, "Hey op, mind if I go first?" And I was frozen on the spot, so I said sure. Also pretty silly on my part. It's hard to explain that feeling where you absolutely frozen and there's a big lump in your throat that prevents you from speaking. But saying the news in the first place was really difficult to begin with. Update number 2. Just another point to clarify, I'm not a saint, but my brother does mean a heck of a lot to me. It's exactly why his wife and I cleared the air between us before, because I wouldn't deliberately make his life hell by pissing her off. Hence why when I saw she was upset I approached her. And when she told me I could have Skyped I responded with I wanted to tell them in person since they my family and they would probably want to be there with me when I broke the news. I never once implied she wasn't a part of it. My brother and parents know this. Fate helped me get back at my brother. My brother is so mean. He's constantly doing messed up stuff to me, but the worst thing happened 5 years ago. I got my first boyfriend when I was 18 and a senior in high school. I know we were young, but I really loved him. We'd been dating for 10 months when my brother randomly decided, for literally no reason at all, to make up a story about how he caught me cheating and tell it to my boyfriend. He planned it all out, he came up with details, he made it sound real. And because he's such a scarily good liar and a master manipulator, my boyfriend believed him. No matter what I said or did to prove it wasn't true, he believed my brother over me. My brother kept up with his act the entire time and refused to admit he was lying. At one point I thought I'd finally gotten my boyfriend to believe me. But then he broke up with me a few months later and confessed it was because he was still convinced I'd cheated on him and he couldn't move past it. He said, "The worst part is that you won't just tell me the truth, and not to sound dramatic but that still haunts me, I want to cry every time I think about it. And I still miss him to this day." Also, I think it's important to note that my brother has never once apologized. He's so insanely mean that he just thinks it's funny. I even asked him once if he'd consider hitting my ex up and telling him the truth for my peace of mind and he just laughed at me. I never got over what my brother did, and I always told myself I was gonna do the exact same thing to him one day. He's dated several girls since high school, but he'd never been serious enough about any of them for me to consider tricking them. I knew it wouldn't hurt him like he hurt me if I just tricked one of his flings or something. But he finally got his first serious girlfriend last year, and after thinking about it for a long time I decided I was gonna do it. We live in different places now, so I had to do it all online. I used a different method than he did. I contacted his girlfriend pretending to be the girl he'd been cheating with. I made up an elaborate detailed story like he did to me and even photoshopped proof and stuff. I made my story even more believable than he made his. And exactly like he did to me, I went as far as denying it even to him because I knew he might use my texts calls to prove to his girlfriend that it isn't true. He knew I was behind it, though, solely because the girl I made up doesn't exist and there's no one else that would do this. But I kept denying it. His girlfriend wholeheartedly believed me, and my brother kept calling and texting me and begging me to give it up. He was manipulating me and arguing that it's different, because I was younger when he did it to me and my relationship wasn't serious. But my relationship was serious, and like I said, I still miss my ex. My brother really messed me up. I have empathy though, and I was starting to feel bad for his girlfriend because she's innocent. I was kind of regretting everything and thinking that maybe I should tell his girlfriend the truth. His girlfriend asked me a question which led to her admitting that she's been suspicious of him for a long time, so I pried a little bit and encouraged her to look through his phone. She told me she couldn't because she didn't know the passcode and he wouldn't give her access to it. I guessed a few passcodes I thought it could be and gave them to her under the guise of seeing it once but not being sure which one I'd seen. That was kind of dumb, but I couldn't think of anything else to say and she didn't question it. She got in because it ended up being the same one he's had since 2012 when our dad got us iPhones and made us use the same passcode. Idiot. Anyway, lo and behold, it turns out my brother actually cheated on her and my setup was the reason she found out. He's been talking to and hooking up with multiple girls for pretty much the entirety of their relationship. I'm not surprised, because he's a terrible person and cheating seems right up his alley, but I'm shocked at the same time. I literally can't believe things worked out this perfectly. It feels like a dream or something. The universe loves me. I hate to revel in his girlfriend's misery, but I was feeling guilty about her being collateral damage, so I feel like this is the best possible outcome. My lie ended up being the truth. Well, not exactly, but you know what I mean. So I didn't scar his GF or leave her with permanent damage for no reason. All my interference did was speed up the process of the truth coming to light. In fact, my brother may have been able to hide his cheating forever if not for me. He probably would have just manipulated his GF and/or refused to give her phone access forever. She hasn't broken up with him and I'm honestly not sure if she will. IDK how relevant that is, but it attests to how manipulative he is. He screws people over all the time but somehow always gets his way anyway. It's honestly infuriating and scary. Anyway, I'm still not going to admit to my brother that I'm behind it all, because there's no point. That would just get me in deeper trouble. I got a comment on my original post that said, "Deny till you die B." Bye. And that's exactly what I'm planning on doing, lol. Life's crazy. AITA for threatening my sil to kick her out over an argument. Have a brother who has a wife and son. Our parents were divorced, so after their passing, I inherited everything from my mother and also half from father. But my brother only inherited the remaining half from father. Shortly after inheriting my mother's house, I was quickly approached by one guy who wanted to buy the house. He already made an offer to my mother but she didn't want to sell because she was living there and didn't want to leave. It's a 4-story house that is huge AF, still had some rooms unfinished and I didn't really want to live there, so I cashed out and bought a studio apartment in the city where I was working. My brother was renting a place in the very same city. Forward to the recent times. My brother is an engineer and had a solid job until the beginning of 2020 where he got fired. Since then he still hasn't found a job in his field. He started eating through his savings and asked me if I wanted to buy his half of the house property. Dad's house is smaller, but way nicer. Those last years of his life, he invested lots of money into the house and made a pool outside. I wanted to buy it off from him even before he offered it and planned to pay more than what he asked me, so I obviously accepted since it was a great deal and I somewhat helped him. Summer 2021, I guess my brother was running low on cash because he said that he can't afford the rent anymore, so he asked me if he could move in Dad's house. I wasn't using it that much so I let them move in. I've been staying at the Dad's house for the past month or so, because I have some people working on demolishing some old buildings on the property. I get up early every day so I can be with the workers. I noticed that my nephew never has a breakfast before going to school, and also his parents never pack him anything. I asked him if he eats anything at the school, and he said that eats an empty croissant that he gets from the shop. Felt bad, so I started making him a breakfast and packing him a sandwich for school, along with some snacks and a drink. I've been doing it for the past approximately 2 weeks. Yesterday, his mother saw him eating and what I packed for him. She said, "This explains why isn't hungry after school," and left the kitchen after giving me this weird look. After nephew left, she came back and lashed out at me, saying that he'll get fat, that I shouldn't give him junk food, that I made her bad in her son's eyes, and that I don't have her permission to do it. I told her that she is neglecting him and that I will only stop it once she starts doing it. She then screamed at me, called me names, and told me to go back to my shithole in. At this point I was fuming, so I threatened her that I will kick them all out if she doesn't get her shit together. Niebhauer asked what was all the screaming about, and after I told him, he said that I'm not a parent and that I should stay out of it.